Have you done scientific research about nanotechnology? If so, what was it?
Abby and I actually did our senior project together, and we used a nanomaterial that we made to strengthen plastics. Basically, we would make our nanomaterial in the lab, and then we'd mix it into different plastics and make them stronger. So you can imagine just taking kind of like glue from like Home Depot or something, mixing in our nanomaterial, and suddenly it's twice as strong, and you can now use it to do a lot more things. In undergrad, I worked in 3 different research groups, kind of all over the place, and I've done a lot of pretty random stuff. The one I worked in at NC State was focused mostly on stretchable fibers and soft robotics. So that's a fancy way of saying just making like typical headphone wires, things like that, into stretchable and kind of shapeable things.
I have done research before in chemistry using computational methods to help determine how molecules would behave or react.
I actually also worked in Boulder, Colorado on light-based 3D printing materials. So those are really cool things that when you have kind of like a bath of liquids and you shine some light on it, some lasers, and they solidify and you can get really cool shapes.
So I get to do experiments here down on Earth in a lab that give us insight about what's going on at the center of stars and stellar explosions that are literally happening light years away. It's amazing.
I also worked at Harvard last summer working on hitchhiking on different cells to fight cancer. So basically we made these cool little particles that we called backpacks, and we attach them to cells, and then we inject them into cancer sites, and that allows the cells to fight cancer better.
Can I say what I will be doing?
I also will be doing research in the future using similar methods and understanding specific cancer treatments.
In grad school, I'm hoping to focus on developing things like vaccines to fight different diseases. And another area I'm really interested in is regenerative medicine. So that is kind of like the backpack project, doing things that allow the body to heal itself more effectively.
So I haven't done any research into nanotechnologies and nanoscience so far. I've mostly worked in kind of cosmology and big scale universe. This summer, I'll be working on the much smaller scale, shall we say. I'm particularly working on polarons, which is let me see if I can figure out a good way.
Explain it to me. What's a polaron?
Cool.
I don't actually know what that is.
A polaron is something called a quasi-particle, and it's just a reformulation of 2 very strongly interacting particles in a material. So one of them you'll be very familiar with is called the electron, which moves through the material if it's a conductor, and that can charge our phone. The other thing is called a phonon, and it's like a quantized lattice distortion. So you can think about the lattice of atoms kind of vibrating, and it can pass through the material. And the excitation as it passes through the material is called a phonon. You can give an analogy where the electron is a boat in the sea. And usually the sea is very calm, and there's a few waves, which is the phonon, and it kind of bumps it every so often in its course. But it still gets there. But now there's this huge kind of turbulence, and everything's kind of swirling around, and we can't treat the boats and the waves separately. We have to treat it as one thing. And the study of these polarons in materials could lead to a new theory of high temperature superconductivity, where at higher and higher temperatures, your material actually gets more and more conductive. So this polaron, when you apply an electric field, so a potential difference, and you also have a high temperature, this polaron can be thought of hopping from lattice to lattice site throughout the material and conducting charge.
Will you be trying to understand the polarons, or will you be trying to make the material?
So I'll personally be trying to understand the polaron and doing simulations to match and see how it matches with experimental data. Then if everything matches, and the theory would give you even more information of how maybe you could tweak the material further, change some of the atoms here and there, maybe change certain parameters of the experiment to make it even better.
So gold nanorods and the stuff that I have worked on aren't specifically used for their energy properties, but we have used them as essentially these little optical antennas. So when you shine a light just the correct light onto these gold nanorods, that light will focus on the gold nanorods and essentially generate a lot of energy in the form of heat. And so I take those rods and put them in plastic and try to see if I can break that plastic down quicker with the gold nanorods. So that's one of the applications that's not exactly energy related that I use nanomaterials for.
Another thing I've been doing during quarantine is I bought myself a 3D printer, and I've been kind of learning how to use it and getting better at that.